Superman, Gibberers, and common side effects. This is Staying In.
I'm very excited because it means that my chili plants are enjoying the weather at the moment.
Oh, I bet they're loving it.
I bet that, well, they are loving it. They're absolutely going
conditions.
for it. It's perfect conditions.
My garden peas are ripe for picking.
Mm-hmm. How many peas do you generally get out of a harvest, or is this your first pea-related year?
This is Pea Year Zero.
Right.
It sounds like Sam's got a urine infection.
So we're yet to fully count and really understand what we're in for in terms of pea harvesting.
Yeah.
But some quick maths that someone else could do, because I'm terrible at maths. We've got about 6 pods and about like 7 peas to a pod at the moment, but they're very, very small peas.
Okay, so around like 45, 50 peas.
Yeah, which is probably a serving for one person.
But that's good. That's, you've got to get your feet under the table, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. All I've got is a crabapple tree in my front garden.
Oh.
But what I'm excited about is I bought these flowers a couple of years ago called popsicle flowers.
Right.
Ooh.
I mean, the name creates itself pretty much. They're these colourful kind of like, well, popsicle shape really. And I thought that when my neighbour was having their tree trimmed, one of the branches fell on top of them. I thought they'd been smushed. This was like 2 years ago. I was really a bit miffed.
Right.
But 3 of them popped up in the last couple of days.
They're back.
Amazing.
Nature
they've
finds a
popped
way.
up.
What a story. Could I just say, the story of Chris's Hardy Popsicle is, I think that's a highlight of 2025.
Amazon
so
bestseller.
Chris's Hardy Popsicle.
I just wanted to be part of the conversation. I can't eat them. I don't even have to do difficult maths. I can literally count them free.
Also, Kris, don't underrate the humble crab apple, or if you want to give it a nice name, a wild apple.
Oh, that sounds like Big Apple trying to rebrand.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely is that.
It's like when they put on, when everyone went vegan for ages, when that was all like the big craze, pre-protein craze, which is now the big thing.
Yeah.
It's like when they put Shreddies is now vegan on the box, or cornflakes suitable for vegans. It's
Yeah.
It always has been.
Yeah, there was never much kind of confusion over that one. There were no vegans stood in the shop going, "But I just don't know."
Yeah.
So we, as discussed in the previous pod, we all met up recently.
Again.
We did.
Met up quite a lot, haven't we, over the last few years? Or
Yeah,
so?
I mean, I've had enough.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It's been lovely.
Okay, you're at critical mass, are you, Sam?
Kris Ittle Mass, yeah, I think. Yeah.
Right.
This suddenly feels very pointed, Sam.
I feel through the lens of Zoom, I'm protected from his wrath.
Rough. Yeah, it was a lovely summit. Thank you all very much for coming. It was just an excuse really for us to kind of hang out and for me to celebrate my winter birthday in the summer when it's warmer.
Yeah.
And it definitely was warmer, I would say.
It was a lot
definitely
warmer.
warmer than a typical November day.
We all stayed in a lovely cabin just outside the village of Bethesda in Wales.
No relation to the video game company, just FYI.
Nestled next to Zip World, where Pete, Sam, and myself, we did the zip line and go-karting not that long ago.
Yep.
It was a really, really lovely time. I think we chose a beautiful weekend for it, but it was just a wonderful time to just hang out with you all. Ate some good food, played some good games, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later on.
Yep.
And then we did something we've not done in 10 years, almost to the day, which was to set out on a hike just around in the Snowdonia area. And we visited some of the sites from previously. The highlight for me was what we call Pete's Rock. And this time you came in a very, very fetching hat.
Yep. I look like the man from Del Monte. Thank you for that. That was a lovely analogy that you folks made. I did look a little bit like the man from Del Monte.
But that's because you did look like the man from Del Monte.
Yeah, I know.
And to be fair, Pete, not many people can pull off the Del Monte. You did though.
And you say that like is a bad thing. I mean, the man from Del Monte does have general sort of, plantation owner vibes.
Yeah, sure.
But I think that it's probably due a bit of a 21st century rebrand.
What? Hold on. Okay, I think we need to clarify that you're not talking about plantation owning. You're talking about the man from Del Monte.
Oh yeah, the man from Del Monte.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Hashtag bring it back.
It's very important we clarify this, that Sammy's not suggesting.
Yeah, and also it's important that I keep this in the edit. This bit.
I just think the man from Del Monte.
Yeah.
Could really, in today's confusing modern marketing market.
Yeah.
Someone who slaps a sticker of quality.
Yeah. On fruit.
Onto various tropical fruits is just what we need, as well as using proper hiring and recruitment practices.
Exactly. And those two should go hand in hand, Sam. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
I like to think of it a little bit how, you remember when Birdseye, during the late 90s, early 2000s, turned Captain Birdseye from this kind of Father Christmas-like figure to this rugged, handsome man. I think that's what we've got here with the new man from Del Monte.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. I look forward to appearing on a tin fairly soon.
But let's not talk about the wholesome stuff. Let's talk about the games.
Yeah.
Come on, because this isn't going out and having fun and being one with nature. This is
we're really going off brand, aren't we?
We are. This is awful.
Oh.
Come on.
You're right, we should stay in. And we did stay in Friday night. We played the game. After ages, I've been desperate to play. You very kindly got it for me from Essen.
Oh.
Gibberers.
What a game.
Gibberers. One of my 4 things for 40 this year. This game, you know how sometimes when you've described something you've read or seen or played and you say, oh, Kris, it was almost like this was made for you. And I've gone, yeah, okay. This genuinely is.
Yeah.
It's a board game, tick. Cooperative, tick. It's about language. What? Yes. Okay. Where you and your mates, you essentially create a language in about 3 hours or so. But it's not just that. You're not just creating a language from scratch. You're imagining that you are going through a civilization, starting off in prehistoric times where the things you're seeing and the concepts you're aware of are quite understandably quite primitive, moving all the way through ancient to the medieval period to modern and then finally future. That, for me, was such a wonderful hook. And this is a game that comes from Hobby Japan, has recently made its way now to an English-speaking property, whereas the copy you got me came with these lovely handy stickers for me to kind of make it English myself, which was really fantastic. And you sit around the table. There's these lovely little tiny little pads for you to write on, and you begin by talking amongst yourselves, going, okay, we need to create a language that's 18 words in it, but it has to include words from this specific list of stuff that prehistoric people would know. You can't start creating a new word for mobile phone, say, for example, because they obviously didn't exist. But you can say, okay, I'm going to pick sky, I'm going to pick cloud, for example, and you have to, as default, include the words yes, no, I, and no, as in knowledge, no. And then there's this fun bit where you start just making up like little words to go with them that sound quite phonetically quite funny or quite pleasing, or if you're me, very much like the original word in English they're meant to denote. Yeah. And then you arrange them on the table in alphabetical order. And then you have these decks of cards. Each one represents that particular era in history or epoch that I mentioned earlier. And then one person becomes the mentor. They pick that card off the top, and they have to explain that word, but only using those 18 words we've translated. And then as they get that word gets defined, that brand new word, it gets added to our dictionary. And as we're moving through the different civilizations, our lexicon just grows and grows and grows. For the first 3 eras, you can use hand gestures to help you, which is really, really useful. But after that, you can't. You just have to use the words. As a little kind of assistance, you can create a support word, which again, you have to try and define at the same time as the word you're defining. So for example, if I was trying to define cloud and all I had were the definitions for the words white and sky and high, that might be useful to kind of simple to convey cloud, but I may also want to add a little descriptor word to support that might be fluffy. And that's quite cool because once I've got both of those defined, that's 2 words in the dictionary instead of 1. I absolutely love this. One of my favourite moments was just being sat next to Dan. And towards the end, Dan was like talking like a local, like a native of this language. Yeah. And it just made me realise just how plastic language is, like how quickly it kind of adapts to context. Like we were adding inflections and tones in there and it just felt like a living, breathing organism that we'd made within 3 hours together as a group. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was definitely like one of my standouts, if not the standout from Essen itself. And like we've been, talking and thinking about it for a while now, and it's genuinely been wonderful to see that it is starting to come over to English speaking territories now, and like sitting down and seeing like. It's a game, I think, Sam, you described it as a game that you couldn't play lots and lots and lots, but it is a game that you could play infrequently but regularly. So, like, you could play every 6 months or a year or something like that. And it is such an experience that it is very special to take away with you, right? Like, I mean, I still remember, like, some of the words that we came up with, and it's like, days now have gone by since we played it. And it's really cool. Like, And it sounds like it's going to be really difficult. Like it sounds like if you said to somebody, we're going to create a whole new language, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, and be really put off by that as an idea. Like that is not fun. That does not sound like a fun activity. That sounds like work. Whereas when you do it together, when you're collaborating on it, it feels really natural. Like language feels really natural to kind of spin out of a small group. It's such an eye-opening game, and like a genuinely like it feels like a Spiel des Jahres game. Like it feels like it is an important game, and I don't think it's had quite the focus on it that I think it deserves actually.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I think it's interesting because I kind of went through a variety of emotions about the game as the game went on. Like there were definitely times where I was playing it and like you guys would be going through and you'd be putting words together and stuff, and me kind of sitting there thinking, I'm not sure my brain is just not working that way. I mean, this is just not a game for me. It's not working that way. And then something would happen and something would click, and suddenly, like as you say, Kris, like I would be able to kind of engage with it and talk through it and that kind of thing. And you do have an element of like when you know the words because you've said them so many times, you do start adding intonations, and you do start like, if Kris, you had asked me a question in the language that to me felt silly, I might just respond being like, no, as opposed to just like flatly saying a word. I would be responding with intonation, which then adds a bit of humor to it as well, because you're speaking in this made up language. Like our word for no was ayapai. So you'd ask me and I'd be like, oh, ayapai. And you can just add those little kind of those flourishes, that bit of texture to the language, so it's not just like really kind of stony faced. But yeah, and like similarly, like I remember like there was one, I think we were stuck on one for ages that Pete was trying to explain, and I just kind of leant over to Pete and I was just kind of like, this is the one that has broken me. Like I can't do this. This is I don't know what's going on anymore. Pete, you've broken me.
That did happen twice, Stan.
Yeah, we're all just kind of like going round in circles. But as the game progresses and it gets steadily more difficult, and like the words become more complex, like I was on the last run, and like some of the words that I had to choose from, I had to explain parallel worlds, or I had to explain international law, and like we did have quite a big vocabulary at that point, but it's quite difficult to explain the concept of international law. Like, you couldn't just get away with like a rule or rules or something like that. It had to be relatively close. You could do with synonyms, but they had to be fairly close to it. I think like one of them was kind of the sea, and we guessed ocean, so we allowed that because it's a large piece of water. But it was kind of really kind of fascinating, and also, at least early on anyway, we as the guessers were also using the language, which I think added a level of difficulty that perhaps we weren't ready for, because it made it a bit like, say for example, if Pete was, I think the term is mentor in the game, so he's the person trying to get us to guess a specific word using the language. If we are all also using the language, we're not speaking English, so we can't kind of speak eloquently and kind of explain what our thought processes was. By speaking through that language, it actually became almost like a solo game at times as well, because you were trying to guess what other people were trying to guess, and you would be looking at each other and trying to get something from someone else, and you'd all be kind of clicking into gear. As the game progressed, we kind of shied away from that, and we started, as the guessers, talking in English, because for me, it made that actually a more enjoyable experience, because it became a group not against, but it was like a group of three and like a group of one, and that group of one was this person who couldn't speak English and could only articulate using these words. Especially like on me on the last one, I basically had like 3 or 4 words that were relevant, and I just had to keep saying them in a variety of different intonations and variations, because that was the only thing I could do. And it's a similar thing that you get with something like a code names, where you're listening to people talk about this, and you might listen to them saying code names, you might hear them mention the assassin card or something, and in your brain you can't give anything away, but in your brain you're like, no. In this one, you were talking, my last one was a supernova, and you started guessing that quite early on, but I couldn't react to it, and then you went off in another tangent, and I was like, no, because I can't do anything to pull you back other than repeatedly say that. Eventually we did get round to it, but that element as well adds a level of enjoyment for the person who's the mentor as well, to kind of be listening in and hearing how people are interpreting what you are putting forward.
Yeah.
I got a well-known AI to create a paragraph, but only using the words that we translated.
Okay.
Just as a little handy mnemonic,
all right.
I will read out our language, and then I'll read out the translation. Tink Xandar with flowery dinar leitik to chudchikive. Trud is woo-woo, Binny Willis, Flowly Clod Apai with Narg, Dinar, Hula Woo-woo, Flowly under Fleep Peaky, Tink, Colump, Clint Dinar, Quan on Trudchiviek, Smack Smack, Binny Beep Beep, Crook Tink, in Calfwheat Apai Tunge, Trud Apai is Stroof, Fredge Dinar Putch, Tink Fair Fleeb, Ratwar, Kuar, Ku O My, Fanar, Binny I Apai, Fanar.
Wow.
That translates as, I travel with woman, an animal to the altar. The stone is dangerous, or Armageddon. The woman mixes with a vampire and a mermaid under the light of water. I eat paper and book on the altar. Artificial intelligence or computer knows me in an invisible shape. Thunder is hot, red and hard. I look for a light tool for a good activity. Yes or no? Yes.
Wow.
I think we're safe from AI for the moment.
For me, Gibberers is one of those rare games that is almost purely experiential. And to talk about it, to describe it to someone, even us talking about it now, you will never be able to properly communicate exactly what that experience actually feels like in the moment.
Which is ironic, really.
Yes, but we're trying our best. And it reminded me a bit like the feeling of playing Wilmot's Warehouse, which is...
Yes, definitely.
Again, where you try and describe what that game is, and it feels impossible, and it feels completely out of your understanding for A, why this would make an interesting proposition, and B, not knowing if you can trust the game to be able to hold this all together. But I think there are just not many games, if any game exists like this, where you walk away from it feeling not just that you've had a rich and fulfilling shared experience, but you've also created something together as a group, and you have ownership over part of the game. And really the game itself is just a set of tools and restrictions in order to help you construct something and bring something into life. And for me, that's just what I enjoyed about it the most. Like there is enough there if you want to take it seriously. There is enough there if you just want to be silly and offhand. There is enough there if you want to develop things like grammar and inflections and tones and, different elements of language. But it's also has everything you need in there if you just want to use language like a blunt tool. Like it is so clever in just the way that it actually really understands, as Kris said, it just really understands what language is, and that we've all got the same with Wilmot's Warehouse. We've all got this part of our heads which can do this kind of thing, which can remember big orders of things, which can create language, which can understand, tone and inflection, even if we're just speaking gibberish to each other. Like we all have this natural part of our brain that can do that. And that's all the game is really relying on, is that we allow that sort of natural part of us to come forward and be in that space and to experience the game as it's happening. And for me, just to be there and allow that and to understand that is part of what the magic of what Gibberers is to me.
It's the new Superman movie.
It's the new Superman movie. It's also the new movie in the new DC universe of movies.
So this is starting it now. So the last one would have probably been Flash. So I'm assuming that's old hat now.
Which I watched today, Daniel.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's all right.
I think that there is some content that is alluded to in this film that will have existed before this movie takes place or will feed into it, but this is like the big first.
The big reset.
The big reset, basically. And it comes from James Gunn.
Yeah.
He's written it. He's directed it. And I think for the most part, this film kind of really sets out what I think James Gunn and Peter Safran are really sort of pitching, or how they are going to be pitching and how they're going to be developing this new era of DC on the screen. Okay. The film starts off with sort of 5 lines of text, which establishes that metahumans / superhumans have been around on Earth for 3,000 years. Kal-El, Superman, has been on the Earth for 30 years, and he's been Superman for 3 years. And that's pretty much how the story begins. It sets out the fact that we are coming into a world that has already lived and understood that people around them might be different in terms of being metahumans, being superpowered, speaking to other alien species, living in a high technological age. You're sort of just absolutely just absorbed into this world. And I think that direction, even though it kind of makes sense in a lot of ways, because at this point in our cultural consciousness, there is zero reason to really go over Superman's origin story.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I also think that we are already quite conscious and capable in terms of seeing and interacting with lots of different superpowered and sort of super people on the screen. I think we kind of over the years have just understood that as a visual and narrative language, and I think it gives, or has given, James Gunn a lot of license to explore lots of different things that I think he otherwise would have had to wait 3 or 4 movies to get to, and a bit more freedom to be, absolutely sort of unhinged isn't the right word, but have a freedom in his screenplay that I think otherwise wouldn't be afforded to them, in terms of the characters he can introduce, the concepts that he can play with, explore the way that Superman is treated, Superman's relationship with Lois Lane, Superman's relationship with Lex Luthor, all of them, And all of those things are in a lot more of a mature state than they otherwise have been or otherwise could be. And I think that is an excellent decision, because it made for so much more of an interesting film than otherwise I think it would have been.
Can I just ask, because I think what you touch on there in terms of his ability to introduce a wider kind of, whether it's characters and concepts and that kind of thing. Because when I first saw the trailer, I saw people raving about this trailer. And I'm not someone who, like, I remember like watching the Christopher Reeve films when I was young and kind of thinking they were great. But I was a child then, so like Superman, it's a flying, it was amazing. Like Superman Returns was fine, but let's face facts, a Superman film should never be fine.
No.
Man of Steel was, well, moving on. And so this came out and everyone was really excited about it. And I watched the trailer and my takeaway was like, this looks a mess. This looks like you've taken everything you can think of and all thrown it at the screen at the same time, which kind of sounds as what you're talking about there in terms of all these different things he's being allowed to put together. So my question to you is kind of, with all this stuff being thrown at it, like, does it hold together as a coherent entity altogether? Because it seemed as though, from a trailer perspective, and obviously this is what they're selling the movie on, there were so many disparate parts that it didn't feel like it would ever kind of congeal together into like a single thing. Does it suffer from that at all, or does it hold itself together?
For me, it really managed to hold itself together, because I think there is genuine story reasons why James Gunn has pitched the movie in that way. I feel like, it's not a Hollywood secret that the director and the studio rarely have anything to say when it comes to what the content of the trailer is. It's probably only Christopher Nolan that has any relative control over those kind of things. Everything else is done purely by marketing, and they would have just been, let's show everything. And I think in that regard, the trailer does the film a little bit of a disservice, because as you get to know and understand this world we're in, the fact that there would be this many characters here makes complete sense. There's even, one scene where Superman, which is in the trailer, is sitting down whilst a galactic thing is happening in the background that other characters are dealing with. And then there's a bit of narrative that goes on in the foreground, and it's actually just him having a conversation with someone in the foreground whilst the Justice Gang, led by the incredible Nathan Fillion, who's fantastic in this movie, deals with the external threat, because that's how they've worked together as like meta-humans within Metropolis. And for me, that was just like James Gunn is one of his talents, and I think there is issues with the script, but one of his talents is like making groups of people feel like they have genuine, interesting human interactions, and they're slightly gritty, and they do rub up against each other, but he makes that feel genuine and always coming from a place of mutual understanding. And he does the same here between Superman and the Justice League, and that sort of says something about Superman's place within this world, and the fact that he can't do everything on his own, and he is just one man, and he is working with other agents within this world. So for me, it did manage to hold itself together, because there's bits in that trailer that are actually they're just incidental characters that are made to feel like they are bigger parts of this world, when actually that they are just incidental bits that are sort of throwaway and not really referred to.
It reminded me a lot, and I know we were speaking about this briefly, Sam. I walked back to the car park yesterday. It reminded me a lot of just picking up a typical comic now. And I know some people have said, oh, it's the closest we've had to a comic book feeling film in quite a while.
Yeah.
And many people have interpreted that as just being because it's so bright and the colours pop. But actually it's because if I go and pick up, say, a DC comic, whether it be Batman or The Flash or Superman, let's say, or Wonder Woman, invariably there are instances where other characters in that universe will crop up within that.
Yeah.
And you don't really think too much of it. I don't feel this annoyance that, oh, what are they doing here? I've not read their work. Why? Who is this person? It's just something you're just fairly used to. Like, all of us here pretty much have read Human Target, which is a fantastic graphic novel. But the whole point of that is having one central character that is going around, and he ends up just meeting a fair chunk of the DC universe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't bat an eyelid at it, really. It doesn't really matter. And it's fair to say, and we were talking about this, Sam, that this is a film that has really split a lot of people. And it's not just a classic thing that the critics hate it and the fans love it, or vice versa. People have generally found this quite a polarizing experience. And for whatever reason, there are many, I came out of it feeling that, yes, there are some flaws, say, for example, but I really look past it a lot because I generally believe that David Corenswet is Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It is very easy to believe this person is Superman. And I don't think I've had that feeling probably since Brandon Routh. He just seems like a genuinely good human being. There's a line I think Lois says about him, is he just treats every person he meets as if they are the best person ever.
Yeah. like his goodness is his flaw. And,
yes.
And I think that the way that the film is pitched is actually, and Lex takes advantage of that.
Yes.
And that's actually, a really interesting way of looking at, quote unquote, the Superman problem is, the most powerful being on Earth. Like, how do you make him vulnerable? Where you make him choose? You set up the stakes so he has to make a moral decision. The man who thinks that everyone's life is as valuable as the next person, how does he choose between one life and the other? And the way that Gunn has formed the relationship between Superman and Lex in this, and how deep the manipulation that Lex infers and informs onto Superman is probably one of the biggest strengths of the movie. Like, it is both physical and emotional manipulation. It's political, it's geopolitical. Like, the way that he really shows how obsessed he's been about this man, to know and predict how he'll move and therefore try and manipulate every single part of that is really key to one of the film's successes, that it just doesn't rely on, he's got some kryptonite. Very early on in the film, there is a line that says, there is no kryptonite left on this earth, which is just fantastic, because it just tells you in an instant, in a lovely bit of screenwriting, that Lex has tried all that. He's already done it all. They've already tried to stop him. And this is just this is the next attempt from him to try and stop. And I love how, even though he is still meant to be this paragon of virtue and love for all human being, he gets frustrated, Superman. He gets angry. He lashes out. He still has that sort of human emotional response to things. He's not a complete blank slate, which I think has been some previous iterations of Superman have kind of made him out to be.
Very much so. And I buy him as Superman. It's very strange. Like, I think that's something I found quite disarming. Is just, it's been a while since I've seen a comic book movie which features a titular character that is so unashamedly earnest. We've had glib, we've had cynical, we've had dark, we've had gritty. This is something that genuinely feels very refreshing, and I didn't really care about the action, how much or how little the action there is in this film, whatever. For me, it was, as you were saying, Sam, to see somebody so strong, so powerful, but in equal measure so incredibly sensitive and vulnerable. And that is a difficult balance to get right and sell for a summer blockbuster. It really is. And I think that's why lots of people are raving about this film. I think it might be a short-term thing, but I think for them it is purely emotional, that feeling. And it is, I think, helped a lot by the fact that the composers use a lot of John Williams' score in this as well. And there's just something about that just it's the epitome of hope. And gosh, it's an extraordinary sensation. It really is. And this is the first part of what James Gunn calls in the DCU the gods and monsters phase. So that's the first part. It's going to be titled this. So Superman is kicking that off here. And I do think he gets the balance right between this feeling like a lone character who just seems to be the only person of this sort in their universe, because there's no one else like Superman, compared to those films we've seen where they've tried to hurriedly build a universe straight away from the off and just try and get a head start. Gunn has been very canny in that regard, where the equivalent of what you were saying, Sam, about that moment where he's in the foreground and there's stuff going on in the background. You get a sense of stuff has happened in the background that's not the purview of this story. This is a Superman film, but there is stuff going on that's outside of Superman. And it means then, as a viewer, I can watch this film and never watch anything else in the DCEU and still feel satisfied. And again, Rachel Brosnahan, who I'd not seen before. I know, Sam, you'd watched The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Yeah.
The chemistry between these two is off the chain. I don't think I've had a Lois and Clark chemistry that's felt this good ever. I mean, and we've had Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher.
We have.
I think the elephant in the room is probably, you kind of mentioned the DCEU, because obviously with the MCU success, like the desire is to create this, and obviously it makes sense. Like, this is what comic books do. They bring characters together. It's all interchangeable stories and that stuff. It makes sense. And I think one of the problems they've had since this whole idea of a cinematic universe started was obviously kind of, you had the Dark Knight trilogy, which is incredibly successful, and before that you had a lot of some of the early Batman films are very successful as well. And Batman is obviously a very serious, very dark character. And so when they wanted to kind of start up this universe for DC, it kind of looked at Batman as the anchor point. And so as a result, like with Man of Steel, with Batman vs Superman, with Justice League, they kind of had to pull it all down to the dark and gritty nature of Batman in order to make that all work. Now, obviously, with this Superman, the words I'm hearing you use are earnest, of hope, of this is colourful. Some of the stuff I've seen of David Corenswet, like I've seen parts of like when he's been certain scenes where he's talking to Lois and stuff like that, and realizing, oh wow, I've never seen this part of Superman, the Superman who chats, who isn't stoic and serious and quite. I mean, as kind of, I did enjoy kind of Brandon Routh, but that was of another time. But what you often see is like the Henry Cavill stuff. God love him. Like, he's not given a lot to work with really there in those films. There's no kind of, it's not allowed to have any personality, which I'm kind of taken aback when I see elements of this. I'm like, oh, this is strange. Like, there is humor here, but not kind of token humor. So my thinking is, with this whole DCEU, how does the Superman here that is earnest and hopeful and in keeping with those early Supermen and kind of a lot of what the comics are, obviously down the line we're going to be looking at bringing Batman into this, because that is always on the horizon, because he's one of, if not the most successful of the DC characters. And you look at the more recent one with Robert Pattinson, which is incredibly dark, the darkest probably ever. And like, I know I really enjoyed it. Kris, I know you really enjoyed it. Like,
loved it.
These two films don't sound like they would go anywhere close to each other. And that's fine. They don't need to be part of the same universe. However, you do need to bring in dark elements. So the question I've taken a long time to get to, but I'm here now. How do you feel like this world that's been created here, perhaps with the background noise as well, maybe that's going to help with the background characters, how would that work blending into a more darker tone? Because it doesn't sound like it's a particularly dark tone here.
Oh, fine. He's done it before.
Yeah, and I'd say that there are quite dark areas at this film, I would say.
Yeah.
And also, I am super excited for the Supergirl movie. Now, nearly finishing Tom King's Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, which is going to be essentially the source material for this film that is in post-production now, I think, of time of recording. That, I think, is going to be a really interesting bridge tonally between the bright kind of high contrast of what we've seen in this Superman with something that is a little bit more real and a bit more human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is that.
I think that how he's pitched Luthor, the other characters around Superman, he acknowledges that as an issue. I don't think we're going to see a Batman in the same vein as, like the 60s, 70s Batman. But as Kris said, there are moments in this film where Superman has to acknowledge that not everyone shares the same outlook that he does. And when this film is actually at its most interesting was when he's forced to question, like, actually his approach and how he values and thinks about things in just a very plain and sort of black and white way. And if they get Batman right, that's the pitch, that's the bridge. Because you throw in a character who is morally a lot more murkier, doing the same thing, but morally a lot more distant and greyer, and how that affects, Superman and his approach to stuff.
I think it also, one thing I would say, and I've not seen this movie, but I have read, a fair bit of Superman, a fair bit of JLA, a fair bit of Batman. There is, Morrison's run on JLA, for example, does a really good job of contrasting that all-American sweetheart of Superman with the brooding seriousness of Batman. And it's done with a palette that is big and bright and 90s and, really over the top in a lot of ways. But it works really well because of the way that the scenes that get written and how the staging works. One of the interesting things about Gunn that I think is a massive risk, but I think is creatively interesting, is that the kinds of movies that are being talked about, the kinds of characters that they're talking about, are not just the standard Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, that kind of thing, which makes me think that there will be characters that can help bridge that gap, like in Supergirl, but also I do think that Superman isn't just the red and the blue and the yellow. Sometimes he is the black and the white. Sometimes he is the lightning blue and white. Like there are different forms of Superman, which I get the feelings Gunn would be comfortable exploring that we've never seen on. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen on TV before, let alone a movie.
I will say this for the film: it goes full Morrison.
Okay, that's cool.
At a couple of points, full sci-fi, psychedelic sentences that humans have never spoken before, describing time and space and
like
all sorts of.
How do you perceive the world when you are effectively a god amongst men? Like,
no, I mean the literal, like, full on, like, universe hopping.
Oh wow! Okay, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
okay.
Full Morrison, like full, like.
Oh wow!
I am.
Okay, so
I do not understand. So, and what's great about that is none of the characters ever bat an eyelid.
No.
Like when they're going like full interdimensional bonkers with more colours on the screen than I've seen in a long time, none of the characters bat an eyelid. And I was like, brilliant. I don't have to worry about understanding any of this because none of the characters seem like they have to worry about it. So I'm just going along for the ride.
Nice.
And I think that kind of like typifies the whole film. It's kind of like, it's just sit back. We've got you. Don't worry. It's all gonna be fine.
Would you guys like to hear about something very different to your Superman escapades? How about an animated conspiracy thriller around the American pharmaceutical industry? How does that sound for you?
That sounds like you've probably got something you want to talk about, because otherwise
you are correct. Yeah. That wasn't just off the top of my head.
No.
I've been watching a new show called Common Side Effects. It's an animated show by two creators, Joe Bennett and Stephen Healy. Stephen Healy done some work on Veep and The Office. The only thing I know of Joe Bennett, I've not seen it, but there was an animation he did, which is on Netflix, the moment called Scavenger's Reign, which after watching Side Effects, I am interested in watching. Although apparently I think they've cancelled after the first series, but I think it is supposed to be very good.
It's amazing.
So I'd seen kind of a few articles popping up on various feeds of like these kind of like mid-year points. These are the best films I've seen of 2025, the best TV shows, best games, all that stuff. And a show that kept cropping up on them. Firstly, Andor season 2 was showing up on them. Haven't watched that yet, but I will be watching that soon. But the other show that kept cropping up was a show I'd never heard of at all or heard any kind of buzz whatsoever, which was this show called Common Side Effects. So it's 10 episodes. You can watch on Channel 4 or 4OD in the UK. In America, it's on Adult Swim. So that's the kind of place where you would get like Rick and Morty, Robot Chicken, King of the Hill, Bob's Burgers, those kind of things. And it's kind of a surreal, the only word to describe it is hallucinogenic kind of animation, really dry humor. The creators talked about being inspired by the Coen brothers, especially like a film like Burn After Reading. You very much get a sense of that kind of off-kilter humor kind of all the way through this. And then kind of the animation very much leans into the anime world. Like I'm someone who doesn't watch a lot of animation outside of Disney. Like, so I've watched some Studio Ghibli in the past, obviously wonderful stuff, but I've not watched a lot of it. It's just not something I have a lot of exposure for. So my scope of kind of reference is fairly limited. But like a lot of the backgrounds and like the landscapes very much felt kind of Ghibli-esque kind of to me. The character models not so much, but very surreal, kind of very large heads, but not your typical anime stylings for that. So as I say, yeah, it's a conspiracy thriller about the American pharmaceutical industry. Big pharma, big business, big bad guys. And it's a story about a hippie scientist called Marshall Cuso, who's got long hair, long beard, just kind of wears open kind of Hawaiian shirts with nothing underneath, making YouTube videos about fungi. The first time we see him, he's like an activist protesting at a pharmaceutical convention. And this guy, when he's out and about researching, discovers this new type of hallucinogenic mushroom with unbelievable healing properties, which can heal anything from kind of incurable degenerative diseases to your bog standard cut finger, broken bones. He bumps into an old classmate who, unbeknownst to him, works for the pharmaceutical company, and they reconnect and they discuss kind of his discovery, and there's a bit of conflict there because kind of secretly she sees this as kind of a career advancement and like a chance to improve her life, whereas he has much grander ambitions of he can save the world, he can break the wheel of this kind of pharmaceutical industry. We don't really have that same kind of industry in the UK because obviously we have the NHS and stuff like that, but obviously that's a huge thing in America with their healthcare system. But he has this idea of kind of breaking that whole system with this one thing. Very quickly, he finds himself as a fugitive on the run from basically anyone who finds out about this thing. Anyone and everyone wants it for their own benefits. Like, some elements of like the big pharma want to get rid of it because, according to them, healthy people are bad for business. It's that kind of lots of different areas with really not good views on what to do with this thing, going up against him who's very pure and wants to use it just to help people. It's a story about kind of looking at what would happen if this miracle drug was discovered, and what are the ethical dilemmas that it raises. Like, should this be mass produced? Should it be built in a lab and potentially fall into the usual business model that already exists, that capitalist structure? Who gets it? Who decides who gets it? There's a really kind of lovely moment where he's trying to give it to people and someone comes up to him and is like, oh, I need it. I've cut my finger. And he's like, I'm not going to give it to you for that. Like, I've only got so many. But he's like, but my finger really hurts. It's like, no. And it is that simple thing. Like, that would have cured it. But yeah, he's having to make that decision. And who is he to make that decision? As it progresses, it becomes less black and white. It starts off like big pharma bad, individual good. But as with all things, there is that grey area where it kind of blends together. And actually, is there a murky area between them? It's all very nuanced and subtle. It's never kind of actively saying one thing or another, because there are absolutely elements of both which are valid. The characters themselves are just really well written and well rounded. The characters of Marshall and his old classmate Francis, their conflicts and their relationship that develops is really the heart of the story, and it is a really lovely thing as they kind of go back and forth. But like a lot of the side characters as well are really lovely. There's a there's a pair of DEA agents, like Drug Enforcement Agency, who just have this really lovely dynamic and friendship of just two ordinary people. I think you're first introduced to them when they're just sitting in the car singing along with the radio, and it all very much feels like this is above their pay grade, but they're trying their best, and they are just really good friends. And there's lots of these little kind of different character beats and subplots that are going on, but all the little subplots are engaging in their own right. None of them feel token, none of them feel for comic effect or anything like that, because it is funny, there is absolutely humor in it, but none of it feels like it's just there for comic effect. There is something that I'd compare it to, which may seem strange, and I can't remember if it was either Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, but one of them I remember thinking as I was watching it, because obviously those films have lots of plots going on simultaneously. And I remember watching those films and thinking as I was watching it, this is brilliant, I'm really enjoying this. I'm kind of now interested to see what's going on elsewhere. And it just so happened, as I was thinking that, the film would go elsewhere. It paced itself well enough to know when's the audience going to want to go elsewhere. And this does the same thing. Like, if I've spent a bit of time somewhere, I'm going to go over, maybe spend some time with these DE agents, or Marshall, or Francis, and trying to always checking in on all these different areas as they come together. And it's just a really lovely story that is being told. It's only over 10 episodes, so it's not long. Each episode's about 20 minutes long. So I think, like, I've seen various places talk about what 2 at a time, because you get through it. It's all about kind of building momentum. The story never really lets up. It's always progressing. It's always moving forward. It's utilizing cliffhangers to keep you hooked. At no point does the action really stop. And that doesn't mean to say it's kind of 100 mile an hour, but it never feels like anything's filler. It never feels like it's treading water. It's just been a really lovely surprise to find it. It's already been greenlit for a second series.
Oh, so great.
That's great. Because obviously I can say that the story doesn't complete at the end of you're not got a finished story at the end of it. It's obviously going onwards. So it is great that, because obviously after that, their original show, the kind of the Scavenger's Reign, didn't get a second series. So it's great that this one has. And I think it has been very, very successful in America. Chris, I think you've seen the first episode, because I did mention this to you guys the other day, and as is always with our WhatsApp group of death, a recommendation often doesn't go anywhere. But Chris, you have seen the first episode, haven't you?
Seen the first episode, really loved it. It has this really interesting aesthetic choice where the background has this very rich painterly quality, as you say, Dan, very much akin to a kind of a very polished anime, but the characters themselves are animated in a manner which feels slightly off kilter, as you say, big heads, quite small hands.
Well, it's got that sort of Mike Judge-esque Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, no, definitely
quality to it.
And we spoke at the weekend about The Martian as being a wonderful example of competency porn. And there's something really interesting about the character of Marshall, where you've got somebody who is suspicious, but quite rightly so. They're constantly switched on because everyone's trying to track them and follow them. And they have like contingency plans for pretty much nearly everything. And it is really satisfying watching this. And it made me realise how long it's been since I've watched a classic kind of like conspiratorial thriller where you've got one person on the run from everyone. And I do love those films in particular. I initially, when I saw Marshall, that character, I thought, okay, is it going to go down the route of just seeing him as some kind of like loser that just happens upon this particular fungus, this mushroom that grows in a very particular manner? As he says in the conversation, it's like 1/billionth of a chance, like the proper Goldilocks of a chance of this thing existing. But in that very short space of 20 minutes, I found myself absolutely hooked and interested by these characters. And to do all that in 20 minutes and to highlight all the subtextual kind of unspoken connections between them all, it made me realise actually how good multi-story television can be, where it's not that Marshall is the catalyst for everything necessarily. He in instances he's the central character, other instances he's in the background. Well, as you say, Dan, we've got these other characters doing their own thing here. It made me realise how frustrated I get with Rings of Power, which is a series I love, but I'm not going to lie, there are instances where it will cut away to characters I'm not as interested in. And I'm just looking at my watch thinking, okay, when are we going to get back to the ones I like?
I don't want to spend any more time in Numenor.
No. And I get a feeling that's where the third series is going to be, Dan. And this doesn't outstay its welcome. Admittedly, I've only seen one episode, but both my wife and I were like, okay, yeah, we're going to watch another one. Definitely. Pete, I've got some bad news for you.
More bad news?
In December 2015, they revived the man from Del Monte.
What do you mean?
Well, he came back as a younger actor.
Oh.
Wearing the same white shirt and Panama hat. And apparently he came back and his first advert was to impress a lady with the quality of his pineapple. But on the plus side, Pete, it was only in Italy and Spain that this advert ran, so you can call the market elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do that then. Shall I? I'll get in touch with the
what fruit. What fruit do you think you'll pick?
Oh yeah,
Banana,
wild apples,
melons,
Sam,
plums,
yeah.
peaches, aubergines. Or he's the Carry On character. He's like Sid James. Ooga.
Skew and Barbara Windsor.
Oh God.
Incidentally, there is a band called The Man from Del Monte, so I could put them on our Spotify playlist.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, we should do that.
They're appropriate.
So let's check if they're appropriate first.
Yeah. We'll do that.
There's a great thing in Superman where he references some bands that exist in that universe, and James Gunn has actually written a song for this band, and they play out on the end credits. So there's like basically a fictional band that exists in James Gunn's DC universe that don't actually exist anywhere else.
That's very cool.
Outside of it.
They're called the Crab Joys.
The Crabjoys. And Kris was like, isn't it great if they became a real band and they can forever be known as Superman's favourite band?
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. You can put that on the Spotify playlist.
We'll put that on the Spotify playlist.
I'm going to put David Fleming and John Murphy's score to Superman because it's really cool.
It's so good.
It's really cool. If you want to pick me up, listen to the track Last Sun. It is great.
And if you want to hear all of that stuff, you can find a link to it directly in the show notes for this episode, because I will definitely put that in. We always do, in fact. We always put links to all that good stuff and all the other good stuff as well, to everything that we cover in the show notes. So take a look at that on the device that you're listening to this on. Also, stayinginpod@gmail.com if you'd like to tell us what kind of fruit you would be happy to represent. Keep it clean. You can also find us on Instagram @stayinginpod. You can find us on Steam. Just look for the Steam curator page. And some people have been asking me, what this actually does. And what it does is basically, if you follow the Staying In Steam curator page, then first of all, you can go and see every single game that we've ever covered on Steam. And if you happen to be browsing through Steam and a game happens to be on sale or it's recommended or you stumble upon it, then our little review of it will crop up on your Steam page and it'll say, oh, this is what they thought of it. And you can go and listen to that and find out what we thought about it if you put any stock in what we think about video games. And same goes for BGG. So if you are a board game fan, and hopefully you are, then you can go and see every single board game that we have ever covered on this podcast on our BGG page. Give it a little follow. I don't know what else that does. I don't think it does anything else, but maybe it will in the future. Who knows?
It's nice.
It's nice. And everything else is on stayinginpodcast.com. You can go there. You can see the stuff. Listen to all of our previous episodes. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Right. How would our language close the show, Kris?
It would come out as Iapai, Bini Fanar, Najaskwa, Kuako, which means no or yes, time good. And instead of take care, it would say Fair woo woo, dinar, crook, kuako, which means look out for danger and no good.
Oh.
Take care.